Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Lan tanalul birra hatta tunfiqu mimma tuhibbun. Salawat. I was very much touched by the words of our friend, our elder, Murtaza Bhai. And truly, these were words from the heart. An institution needs fertilization. An institution needs that we input something into it to try and yield the results that we need. It's extremely important that this legacy that began with the intention of saying that we will provide a platform with a difference, continue, and not just continue, but it must progress, it must thrive. What we need is a passion, the zeal that the founders had or still do, that becomes contagious, and that all of us sitting here are able to participate, and that we can be part of the solution that we are all seeking. We are talking about transformation. We are talking about transformation of societies. Well, you need to have solid, good establishments and institutions which will allow us to bring about the transformation that we are all seeking. Moment in the ayah that I began with symbolizes Karbala, symbolizes all our acts when we give something in the way of Allah for His pleasure, which is going to serve humanity. Never shall you achieve righteousness, the concept of birr, unless you give something out of that which you love, something that you want, something that you need. And if you give that away, somebody having $1 million giving $100 compared to somebody only having $2 and sharing the $1 that they have, the value of that can be calculated by the intelligent audience here. I don't need to compute it for you. But truly, it is a matter of saying, if I need something, but if I see someone needs it more, and if I give, that truly is a path towards birr and towards goodness for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To continue with the fourth in the series of what makes the message of Karbala so endearing and how can it transform us. We looked at some ideas as to why does it make it so endearing, but Karbala pulls at our heartstrings. When you truly listen to the words of the poetry that we hear every day, every word of that is so full of emotion and meaning. Tragedy unites people. You know, if there is a conflict in a family, if there's a wedding, so-and-so will not come and I will not come and I did not get a phone call, I did not get a card. But if there's a bereavement in the family, the entire family will come together. This is the power of the tragedy. This is the power of Karbala. There are 200 million people around the world today and more. Because it is not just the Shias who commemorate Ashura and Karbala. More and more of our Sunni brethren have now continued with the tradition because the world is becoming much smaller. The understanding, the intra-faith work that we do is now paying dividends. This time, for the first time in Los Angeles, the oldest mosque in Los Angeles, the Islamic Center of Southern California, which is based in Los Angeles, which is the oldest center, a Sunni center, has been commemorating these lectures on a daily basis also. This is the power of Sayyid al-Shuhada. There are speakers who come to our centers. At one time would have been unheard of. That, oh my God, a speaker who is not a Shia addressing us the Muharram Majlis. Well, we now have many centers where you have speakers from all parts. If you haven't heard a great Christian speaker, go to YouTube and listen to Chris Stewart. If you listen to the man, he's a professor, he's a Christian. And his dimension of the way that he is explained, this is an outsider looking inside. And what he has been able to demonstrate, sometimes we miss it for the trees that we have and the fog that we have in our minds and the boxes that sometimes we put ourselves in. And transformation cannot come until we think out of the box. But you know, before you can start thinking out of the box, there is one step that is before that. You have to admit, you have to understand, and you have to actually locate that box that you are in. If you don't even know that you're in the box, that you cannot even get out of the box, because you have to first identify the box. And the deliberations that we have, the question answers, the safe space where we try and see that we all think out of the box, because that is the kuwa. And inshallah, I will be talking about that during this lecture. But right now, I want to transport you to a busy market in Makkah. This is a drawing. It could have looked like that. It might have looked a little different. And I want you to think of a society where the strong thrived on exploiting the weak. And then you had women who did not have rights. They were treated as chattel. And there were girls who were buried alive. And success was measured by the number of camels that you had. And in that market, in that society, if you can transport yourself in 7th century Arabia, there was a call that was made on a small hill. And the Blessed Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Qulu la ilaha illallah tuflihu." That say la ilaha illallah so that you may be free, that you may be delivered, so that you may achieve falah. Again, falah is, as I said before, hard to translate. But it could be freedom. It could be the idea of removing the shackles that you have. The shackles of what we call in Islamic history, the shackles of Jahiliyyah, the period of ignorance, where two tribes would kill each other just because a camel of one tribe would have crossed to the side of the other and destroyed a tent. And people would be killed because a camel destroyed a tent. That was the society where the Blessed Prophet said, "Kulu la ilaha illallah tuflihu." What a liberating message. That is our legacy, mu'mineen. When we say la ilaha illallah, it is that sense of liberation. Sometimes we feel that the trappings of faith puts us back into shackles. It does not, mu'mineen. If we were to truly understand and imbibe the spirit of la ilaha illallah, the freedom it gives you, the spiritual freedom that it gives you can match none, because when you have said that I have made one sajda, I have made one prostration to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it has saved me from 1,000 other prostrations to other people or other entities. That is the power of freedom that we have. So this was a paradigm shift, to use an oft-quoted and sometimes misquoted, because anything that happens, the words are very cheap. So this is a paradigm shift. We need to first understand what a paradigm is. But this was truly a paradigm shift in 7th century Arabia, where the values like taqwa, the values of being near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning that somebody who was God conscious, somebody who felt their responsibility as a human being, as somebody who would live with integrity, with truth, with righteousness, was elevated. and not somebody who had the most camels and was the chief of the biggest tribe around. What it did was it deflated the value of blood, of tribe, of asabiya, of race. And the pre-Islamic days, these were the items of prominent significance, and all these were brought down to zero to say it does not matter. Hazrat Bilal could go out there and give the azan as a black man, and the tribal chiefs could say nothing. That same person, when he was beaten, as I said before, for saying La ilaha illallah, had the courage to say Ahad, Ahad, God is one. God is one. He is the only authority that I will submit to. It gave him the power to withstand. This was the message. And the message was direct. It was not clothed in a lot of theology and fixed gymnastics and everything else that we have. The message was simple. Man comes to the Blessed Prophet and he said, give me some guidance. And the Prophet said, control your anger. He said, anything else? Control your anger. Anything else? Control your anger. The man goes away. And soon enough, there was some tribal commotion, and the two tribes are now ready to fight for the smallest of causes. And as was the custom, the chief of the two tribes go and begin the battle. And as one of the chiefs starts to begin the battle, he remembers the words of the Blessed Prophet. Control your anger. Steps back and said, let us not fight. Let us not fight. We forgive you for the transgression that you have done to my tribe. Now this was unheard of. You know, it's like a cat who's trying to save their kitten, and a dog comes, and the mother will do anything, literally anything, to save the kids or the kittens. In desperation, if that cat barks back, the dog would be flummoxed to see a barking cat. In the same way, when the chief said, we forgive you your transgressions, the other chief said, he was taken aback. He said, I am no lesser a person than you. We forgive you too, there'll be no battle. This has happened in the history of Islam, when the message of La ilaha illallah, the message of the Blessed Prophet, transformed these people. This is the meaning of real transformation. A place where everyone was so consumed with their own egos, with their own stature, with their own positions. Does that remind you of a certain society that we live in? Let's reflect. But here, I'm talking about 7th century Arabia. I'll let you reflect on the current society. The point is that there was this idea of ego, that this is my position. Somebody would come and they would actually be expected that their seat would be reserved for them. And the Blessed Prophet started sitting in a circle. And it is said that when people came who did not know the Blessed Prophet, they would have to ask, who is Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam around here? This was the egalitarian, this was the equality that the Blessed Prophet was presenting. A man comes to him and brings him some fruit. This was the custom at the time, that the farmers would bring the first harvest to the Prophet as a gift. And usually when the harvest would come, fruits or whatever, the Prophet would share it with the companions, and they would all eat and thank the farmer who brought it. This time, the man brings fruit, and the Prophet picks up the fruit and eats it. Picks up the second one and eats it up. Third one, fourth one, fifth one. Pretty soon he finished the entire thing on that day. Must have been, really, really tasty fruit. And the man was so happy. He said, oh my God, this is the first time I see him. My fruit must be special. And he lives so happily. Really, really happy. When he leaves, some of the companions asked the Prophet that, Ya Rasulullah, all the fruit for yourself, nothing for us? And he smiled. And he said, then this man brought the fruit. In his rush to bring me the fruit, it was not ripe. It was bitter. Now, if I had allowed any one of you, if I had shared the fruit, if one of you would have said this fruit is bitter, his sensitivity and his heart would have been troubled. You would have hurt the man. I would rather eat the bitterness of the fruit than see my follower being hurt in any way. This was the empathy. This was the empathy of the Muslim Ummah that was taught to us by the Blessed Prophet. What happened to this Ummah? Why is it that today we have so much strife when he taught us this kind of empathy, that he could not see a farmer being hurt? You know, power shifts according to the times. And the Blessed Prophet shifted power back to the society. And it's not difficult to see. If you can envision, Alvin Toffler, a futurist, wrote a book called The Power Shift. Has anybody read the book called The Power Shift? Right. When he wrote that book, he said power will shift from the feudal lords, and it had almost shifted to the industrial society, and then said power will shift to people who will possess knowledge and information. He said this 35 to 40 years ago. Read the book, it's interesting, although it's a 30, 40-year-old book. Nobody any idea, nor did Alvin Toffler for that matter, as to how Google would come about. You know, how the information industry today has become the wealth creator and amongst the most affluent companies. The idea is the envisionment of where society is going. We go back to the Islamic principles. And when we say we are muntazar, when we say we wait for the Imam, that when the Imam will come, there will be a society of peace, of aman, of justice, and of a global enterprise where everybody will be treated equally. We have a duty. We cannot just sit and say when the Imam will come, he will do it. Many scholars have asked this question. Are we waiting for the Imam, or is the Imam waiting for us? To create the least imperfect society, so that when he comes, we're able to give it to him and say, Ya Imam, this is the least imperfect society that we've been able to create. This was the call, Mu'minin of Hal min Nasirin Yansurna, where Imam Hussain alayhi salam said, is there a helper who is going to help me? The idea is to try and do this. This is how the transformation happens within a society. So now when you use these big words like transformation, what does it mean? You see that caterpillar turning into a butterfly? We have to go through hardship. Since I see a butterfly, I cannot help not relate this particular story. As the butterfly is coming out of that cocoon, it has to come out on its own. There was a man who was watching a butterfly who was trying to struggle out. He felt pity on the butterfly who was trying to come out of the cocoon. So he opens just a little bit of the cocoon. And the butterfly gradually comes out, comes on the ground, is not able to fly and dies. Do you know what happened? In order for the wings to lose all the water, it has to go through the tiny hole out of the cocoon. That is how Allah planned it. So that when that butterfly comes out, the wings are light. They don't have any water in it, so the butterfly can fly. Sometimes we try and make it easy for others, feeling a sense of sympathy. Each of us has got to go through our own cocoon to come out as a butterfly to fly. This is the idea of that transformation. Change is different. Somebody will change you from outside. Transformation is from within. Transformation is that you try to be the best that you can. And this truly is that a butterfly is a transformation, not a better caterpillar. If we can understand that metaphor of a butterfly, then we can understand what transformation is all about. In the change mode, the desire is to improve past, directs what we do. The past actually sets boundaries. We are in a box because this is the past box and I want to change within that box. Transformation is different. In the mode of transformation, it is a future that's going to direct your action. That's the big difference between change and transformation. And it only limits, the only limit is the imagination and the courage to deal with difficulties that you have. That is the only thing that will constrain us when it comes to transformation. So change happens to us from outside, by external forces, by circumstances. Transformation happens by passion, by a willing attitude that I would like to see a better oil as an organization. That's the passion. I would like to see that I leave a legacy for my children and my grandchildren who will be able to come and participate in this institution that we have built so that when they come out, there will be better human beings. That is the meaning of that transformation. Change is something that keeps evolving and devolving. Sometimes you go this way, sometimes you go the other way, depending on where the circumstances are. But once you have transformed, a butterfly cannot get back into a cocoon and become a caterpillar again. A transformation is complete and permanent. There is no going back. So, the transformation comes from within. We have the ayah of the Quran, فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. That then he inspired the nafs to understand what is right and what is wrong. It is that nafs that is going to allow you to determine what is right and what is wrong. And internally you can bring in, because this is the undeveloped kingdom that needs to be transformed within you. And things like this cannot be pinpointed to say, do step 1, 2, 3, and 4. I will give you a 4-step microwave approach. Each one of us will deal with it in our own unique way, as long as we have understood what we are capable of. So, the journey of transformation is the journey of through various nufus or the various nafs that we have. The first is to understand yourself. That is the highest degree of wisdom, is self-awareness. That I know myself. And then you develop, through that you develop emotional intelligence, you develop empathy, then you know that if you were to walk in the shoes of another, then you will create that empathy and then you will become less judgmental. Because this is one of the biggest issues that we have. We are very quick to make a judgment on others. If we've understood, you know, there is this saying to say, walk a mile in someone else's shoes. When you walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, what do you get? You've taken somebody's shoes and you're a mile away, no. When you walk a mile in somebody's shoes, then you will know what it takes and that you will not be judgmental. Now, please give me few minutes of attention, because this has got to be presented so that I can complete the rest of the argument. That the perfection of the soul lies between two wings of that butterfly that we may call it. Philosophy and ethics, and I'm not going to go into that. So please don't go to sleep yet. Philosophy and ethics are the two wings through which this nafs can travel. So you have philosophy and you have ethics. And within that, contemplation towards human perfection, seeking the nearness of Allah, is what we call philosophy, and it's called speculative wisdom when you learn this formally. It's called al-hikmat-e-nazariya, which is really speculative wisdom. And then you have ethics, The ethics is your movement from evil habit traits towards virtuous behavior. Each one of us develops. That is the subject of akhlaqiyat. Akhlaqiyat is not just on the basis of how you sit down and how you eat and all that. It is not confined just to that. Akhlaqiyat means much more, and it is indeed a journey. Mullah Nasruddin meets a great alim, takes him to a fish restaurant, and they order fish. And when the person brings fish, there are two fish. Normally, if one fish is usually larger than the other. That's a law of the sea. No two fish are exactly the same size. So you had a slightly larger fish and a smaller fish. As soon as the waiter brought, Mullah Nasruddin grabs the bigger one and leaves the smaller one for the great scholar. The great scholar says, now I can give him a lesson in akhlaqiyat. And he gave him a 25-minute lecture on akhlaqiyat and saying, you should have offered the fish to me, and so on and so forth, and all that. So at the end of that, Mullah asks him, Nasruddin, to say, what would you have done? He said, I would have taken the bigger fish and offered it to you. He said, exactly. Because that would have been the result in any way. So that's what I did. I knew you would have offered it to me, and that's why I took it. So the idea of akhlaqiyat is not just manners. Akhlaqiyat is much deeper. It's practical wisdom, which they call hikmat-e-amaliya. So you have the philosophy, you have the reflection, and based on that you have the action. That is how we have the two wings in terms of developing our faculties. Because at the time of creation, a soul is clean, it's devoid of all traits, good or evil. An infant is born, an infant is pure. We call that this infant is masoom. You develop, as you progress through life, you develop faculties which are directly based on the culture that you live in, the family that you grow up in. All this conditioning happens for you to be what you will become. And if you then have understood that developing these faculties is a process where you can heighten your awareness through the concept of akhlaq, having contemplated. And that truly is the essence of it. I invite you to read a phenomenal book by the master of akhlaq, and the book is in English, and it's not a long book. It's called The Collector of Felicities, and the book is all about the faculties of a human being and how do you develop that akhlaq within you. It's a tremendous book by Sheikh Ahmad Naraki, who is well known for his erudition in the subject of philosophy and akhlaq. I just want to give you a glimpse of his thoughts. Because if you go back, there is no microwave approach. And sitting here, I can't give you steps of 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, that this is what you do, and you'll be able to upload the app that I have, which is going to transform you. I don't have that app. The effect will have to be that we do it ourselves. So we have these 4 powers according to Naraki. The power of intellect, Quwaya Kaliya, the power of anger, the power of desire, and the power of imagination. Al-Quwaya Wahamiya, Quwaya Shahawiya. These may be difficult words, but it's very simple. You have the angelic power of Aql, and then you have the 2 powers which are animalistic, which is the power of taking, the power of desire, and the power of anger. And we need all 3. Human beings need all 3. If you didn't have the power of anger, you would not be able to protect yourself. If you didn't have the power of desire, then you would not be able to procreate. You would not be able to live. So you need to have these faculties Allah has blessed us with. We share the angelic, the power of intellect with the angels, and we share the other 2 with the animals. Now the transformation is that we can be better than the angels, because the angels don't have Quwaya Ghazabiyya and Quwaya Shahawiya. They only have quwa aqliya, they can only do good. If we are pulled down by the other two faculties, despite having aql, then we are worse than the animals, because the animals don't have the intellect. But if we can survive and if we can do a better job and really move through that transformation, then our status is higher than that of the angels, because we have commanded the two, quwa ghazabiyya, quwa shahawiyya. If you read Naraki's book, it really elucidates on this whole philosophy. And then finally, Allah has given the human being an extra power of imagination. No painting would have been painted, no invention would have been invented, nothing creative would have happened unless we were given this idea of quwa wahamiyya, that power of imagination. So it is this composite that we are talking about, and akhlaq and good manner and transformation can only come when these four are balanced in a human being. So when intellect is balanced, you have wisdom. If intellect is not balanced, you are slow, whatever it is, and if your intellect is working overtime, then you become sly and you become cunning. So the balance is the idea of that wisdom that we have. And then with anger, again the balance of anger is courage. Otherwise you become very weak, or you become a tyrant or an aggressor. The balance of these is to have courage. And for the quwa wahamiyya, the idea of that imagination is that it brings you back to a level of justice. Deficiency of it takes you towards being gullible, and excess of it makes you a con person. So again, the idea of the justice, and lastly passion. The middle path is chastity. The middle path is that you are pure, that you are not inclined, that you are totally sort of inactive or you are overactive. The idea is you must be within. And this is the kind of philosophy that needs to be understood when you talk about transformation, mu'mineen. Unless we understand and study these things, you can't have an app. Neither Android has an app, nor Apple has an app for this. I don't know about any other system. But the best thing that we have been given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that power of intellect, the angelic faculty. And here, this is what Imam Raza alayhi salam said, and I quote. When he was asked this question, that how can you accept the Prophet to be a prophet of God when he showed no miracles? You know, Nabi Musa had his miracles, Nabi Isa had his miracles, all the prophets had their miracles. The blessed Prophet brought the miracle of knowledge and of the Quran. And Imam Raza said the greatest of the miracles of Allah is a human mind. It allows ideas to be thought through and reasoned out. Islam appeals to the human reason. Man must accept God through reason and not through miracles. That is the idea. And truly, when we think about it, and when you think about transformation, mu'mineen, and I have reflected on this, do I want a God who commands me, or do I want a God who empowers me? Yes, I will follow the commands of God, but more than that, Allah wants me to be empowered so that I reach my full potential as a human being, that I become the best. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ, that we have created you in the best of molds. And that is the pinnacle that I need to reach. This is the Allah that I look at, because as I look at my Maker, yes, He can command me, but He has given me free will. He has given me free will within the bounds of what I can do to reach to the best that I can. And this is going to happen through the mind. So, every action needs to have a meaning. And the essence of that aql is indeed asking the questions, receiving the answers, and then questioning the answers that you get. until you are satisfied and you have exercised your intellect to be able to get to the bottom of it. We do this in worldly things. We'll get second and third opinions on our treatment that we're going to have. We will, on our stocks and investments, we will look at barons and every other source that we have, plus the guy and the neighbor and everybody before you will make a decision. So when it comes to our faith, we need to exercise at least that similar idea, and just to make this a little easier, because this is a heavy subject. Two friends were talking, and one said, you know, how much do you smoke? And said, yes. So he said, if it costs you $5 and you smoke 3 packs a day, that is sort of $450 a month. And that would be like $4,500 or whatever per year. You can count, Hussein Bhai. And at the end of the day, it'll cost you $108,000 a year if you smoke 3 packs of cigarettes a day. And if you invest it over those 20 years, then he said, the friend said, you can buy that Ferrari that just passed by that you are so much admiring. If you had invested for 20 years and not smoked, you could have afforded that particular Ferrari. So the friend asks him, this is critical thinking. The friend asks him, do you smoke? He said, no. He said, where is your Ferrari? Critical thinking, that you do not accept the answers that you get, but you question the answers so that you can think that change. To have knowledge, meaning, is one thing. To change behavior, to benefit from that knowledge is another. Just to possess knowledge is not sufficient. The idea is to change the behavior and sustain that behavior change. You can do it. You go to a motivational talk for 3 days, you will be doing everything that Robin said, or what's the other guy, Deepak Chopra said, and whoever else, and you go in, you're fascinated by it. After 5 days, it's all gone. What you need to do is, how do I sustain my behavior change by constant thinking? And that is what we can do. And one way we can learn, Mu'mineen, when we are talking about transformation, and this is a school of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, because people like Mahatma Gandhi were actually inspired by Imam Hussain alayhi salam amongst many. And this is, when we look at these transformational leaders, like Mahatma Gandhi, for example, he wanted to transform the caste system in India. That was his big thing, to say, this must go. What did he do? If you watch the movie Gandhi, I don't know if you missed that, his wife was not very pleased when Gandhi said, we're going to go and clean up the latrines, the toilets in the camp. Why? Because he was trying to be, that by cleaning the latrines, he was saying this was a work of the untouchables in India, that I will do it. This was a transformational leader who actually got in. He did a personal transformation to say this work is not beneath me, before he went and told anybody else. This is the teachings of the Blessed Prophet. This woman who comes, we all know, to say, my son is eating too many dates, please give him some nasiha. She was sent back to say, come back after 3 days. And the boy was brought back to the Blessed Prophet, and he gave him nasiha that, dates should be consumed in moderation and all that. And the lady asked to say, but you could have given him that advice when I first came. He said, but I too used to like these dates very much, so I had to stop eating the dates or control myself before I could give the nasiha. The idea is that you have to, as a transformational person, if you want to influence others, you have to first believe in it, do it, which is exactly what Mahatma Gandhi did. Same thing, Dr. King was in turn inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, this trend goes on. And when you look at it, this was one of the greatest speeches that he made, maybe the greatest speech in the whole of the 20th century, I Have a Dream speech. What does he do? He motivates millions beyond the original audience to believe that they can emancipate themselves, whatever the shackles may be, But he believed in it. He went to that march himself. He was part of the movement. We cannot be outside as positional leaders and say change must take place. And I command you to change my community. Doesn't work. Even from the highest places it does not work. And indeed, this was a clear vision, and that was the vision that Imam Hussain al-Islam had when he leaves Medina. He said, I am setting forth to enhance and to improve the ummah of my grandfather. This was the vision. So, what do we do? And if I take a few more minutes, I hope you'll give me permission, because I'd like to complete this topic. Tomorrow, inshallah, we'll be wrapping up. That we need to challenge the status quo. At a conscious level, most people are afraid of transformation because they don't want to change the status quo. We are afraid of change. We are afraid of moving from our comfort zones. You know, there's a very wise man, and his name will come last, and maybe you might guess it. He said, the reasonable man adapts himself to the world. A reasonable person, and when I say man, I mean women, men and women. In case last time I was here and I was saying America, and I was corrected by this audience here a few years ago, said, please say North America, we are Canadians. So I'm being politically correct here to say men and women. The reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable man adapts the world to himself. This is how we see people. A reasonable person, it is said, adapts. This is how we see ourselves. An unreasonable man adopts the world to himself. Bernard Shaw says all progress depends upon the unreasonable man. You have to push the envelope. You have to be an outlier sometimes in order to have a transformation. So, I will leave you with this final gift. The most blessed gift that we can get of transformation that we can do. Yusuf Bhai yesterday said, give us steps. Well, here is one, a gift that we can implement and think about it. And we will have 99 opportunities to actually do that. So we've got our work cut out for us for the next 99 months if we do this once a month. And this is a gift. The Blessed Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, and I quote, that taqallaku bi akhlaq Allah, meaning that adopt the akhlaq of Allah. Now what is the akhlaq of Allah? What does it mean? This akhlaq of Allah must reflect in our day-to-day conduct in every aspect of our life as we go through society. Now what is this akhlaq of Allah? Where do we find it? Well, we have it because the next 99 months, excuse, there are no mints here, but it's 99 months work cut out for us. And that is Asma'ul Husna. Each name is a transformation word for us. Each of the 99 names, when you say, adopt the akhlaq of Allah, what does it mean? We discover His attributes, we study them, we live them, and each word is a dua in itself. When we recite these names, they need to be imbibed. If we pick one name a month and say, I'm going to adopt this akhlaq, then we will be able to understand this. And I'm coming, almost to the end to say, only way to understand Allah, you cannot know Him. Imam Ali alayhi salam said that if you have contained Him in your mind, it is not Him, because Allah cannot be contained. You can only know Him through His sifat, through His attributes. You cannot know Him in its totality. It is not possible. So this is what we say, theoethics. And these are hard words, terms, but we need to understand this. They're very simple when it comes to application. They call it theoethics, looking at the name and its meaning in relation to Allah. Psychoethics, assuming that name within our psychology, within our own internals. And socioethics, making sure that actions which manifest, by me, actually are manifested in society. So all of us come together, and if we follow one name, then that is socioethics, and we can change the entire society. This is the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. I'll give you one example. Al-Halim is amongst those names. One who is forbearing, somebody who is forgiving. Now, let's look at this one just as an example, and we can do this with the 99 names. And if we pick one each month, you can see the transformation in us. So, he is the one who witnesses the disobedience of the disobedient. He knows what we are doing. We are disobedient, he is witnessing it. He is the one who sees the violation of his command. But you know, anger does not arouse him. He is compassionate. He is not the one who is prompted to take swift vengeance. He disobeyed me, she disobeyed me, I'm going to punish them right away. No, he does not take vengeance. Even though he has unlimited powers to do so. This is how compassionate and forbearing Allah is. Now, look at us. If you were to imbibe this as my personal mantra for the month, that I will be forbearing, then where you have relationship issues, whether it's old or young or middle-aged, the whole life is made up of, composed of different relationships. And when you have relationships, there are issues in every relationship. Can anybody put up a hand where they say, I have no issue in my relationship at all? Anyone? We all have. Well, thank you, Murtaza. I'll have a word with you later on. I'd like to learn how you manage that. A whole life is made up of, something or other. You are either a brother or a sister, a son or a daughter, a spouse, whatever, and most critical, what I call mildil. Mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relations. Each one, there is an issue within families, within societies, within our workplace and all that. We have that. That's human. We'll all have that. What do we do in order to salvage the relationship? We do so many things, I will not speak to them. I do not want their name mentioned in my presence anymore. I don't want to know them. I'm done with you. And all those things that come out. Allah doesn't do that. If I have the psycho-ethics within me to adopt that, then there'll be transformation. Indeed, what he does is, he continues to give. He continues to forgive. He continues to give us risk. He continues to take care of us. He continues to keep this bond with him alive. Because remember, none of this relationship will last. None. No relationship is lasting. And at the same time, this world is such, the society is such, that you will never ever be able to please all the people all the time. You can please some of the people all the time. You can please all the people some of the time, but you will never please all the people all the time. One, you have given somebody 10 beautiful almonds, and they will imbibe the 10 almonds. If one of them, God forbid, is bitter, you will remember for the rest of their lives, कि तुमने कड़वी बादाम पीती. You gave me a bitter almond. They'll forget the 9. You do one, and they will always remember. The only relationship that is going to help us from the beginning till our grave and beyond is a relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that truly is the transformation that we have. Salawat.